disruptors. I've got a very special guest here. If your business needs to get more sales, we've got the right guy on the phone. He's helped out a franchisor, a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, with hole-in-the-wall franchising. He's helped them grow their sales and walk them through the steps of how to do that, turn them around in essence. And if your business is in that same spot, I've got the right guy. His name is Sean Lyden, and he is with us coming from Orlando. Welcome to the show, Sean.
Thank you so much, Ewell. I'm super excited to be here, man.
Yeah. So you're based in Orlando, and I'm going to
am.
start with the question I always ask. And my parents dragged me to Orlando for many, many years in a row, to the point I was, okay, enough with Disney. And I could go eat if I was in Disney World.
Yeah.
But where do you take somebody to dine out, or to, how do you close the deal? And by the way, you're the founder of Systematic Selling. So that's what this is about today, is selling and closing deals.
Yeah.
So how do you do that?
Fantastic question. You're going to look at me like I got two heads, because you're asking, all right, what restaurants do you close the deal? And I got to say, it's probably been about 25 years since I've closed a deal in a restaurant, and that was in Atlanta, and that was a Buckhead Diner, because there in Atlanta, if you wanted to get to know the people that had the money, the investors, the movers and shakers, you had to go get breakfast at Buckhead Diner, and that's where deals were done. Now in Orlando, it's a little different story. Yep. And even, today with technology and everything, the vast majority of my clients are outside the state of Florida. I've got a number here that are in Orlando. But the way my sales process is, the way my closing process is, it's such a natural extension. So I'm usually doing it over a Zoom, or I'm at the client's office.
Yeah.
And haven't enjoyed the culinary delights that you guys have there in Louisiana, man. Because if I was living there, I would have a number of places that would be my go-to for closing deals, brother.
I get people asking me all the time where to go eat, because of my background with the seafood industry here in Louisiana. And my chairman always said, we start talking about lunch at breakfast, and we start talking about dinner at lunch. It's important, though, but it's a big cultural thing, and a lot of people, that's where the deals get done. So,
yeah,
this question, I know you have an answer for, specific, is who or what are you grateful for that helped you get you where you are today?
Yeah, I've had a number of mentors, but if I were to say who helped me get to where I am today, it is my wife, Jennifer. We met in college. We were college sweethearts. So we've been essentially kind of babies together. We got married right out of, I had just graduated. She still had another year in nursing school at Samford University in Birmingham, Alabama. And we lived in married student housing. So we started from the humble means, and a lot of the, I've had business successes, and I had some business failures, and to have someone like her who has provided me wisdom that when I was younger, I didn't listen. And so I experienced some of the failures that, had I listened, I wouldn't have. I could have avoided them. And that just proved the model, the beta test of her wisdom, that as we got older together, that I could truly listen and run things by her, and her giving the support that I would need to be an entrepreneur. She's had to make a ton of sacrifices for me to build a business. And without that, I wouldn't be where I am right now.
There's no question about that. Now, this is going to sound really crazy.
Yeah.
There are two people in my life that really got me on track.
Yeah.
My wife's name is Jenny. And so
Awesome.
we've got that in common.
We're in the Jen Club then.
And there's another person that influenced my life, and this is how we met, because you interviewed a friend of mine who was my very first podcast interview, and that guy's name was Julio.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know Julio at a personal level like I do my wife or other friends, but he and I worked together when when I was 24 years old, and he gave a
Yeah.
motivational speech. I never heard a motivational speaker before, and that flipped the switch to the point when I went to go do a podcast. I went back to him to be on the very first podcast talking
That's
about
awesome.
mindset. So your wife and my wife's definitely smarter than me and has a lot of wisdom and great insights and instincts. And there are times like you, I probably should have listened.
Yeah.
So, all right. Let's talk about you've got a lot of experience and wisdom to share regarding the sales. Let me ask you a couple questions. You've
Yeah.
been at this game for a while. You see small businesses make some typical mistakes. What are the biggest ones you see them make? And then I want to go through a program that you have the three levers of growth for business. But first, let's address the problem, I guess, if you would, the mistakes that you see people make that are easily avoidable.
Yeah. The biggest mistakes that I see, and whether it's how the sales reps are trained or how the owner is pushing on the sales reps. But what I see is a sales process where these reps engage in pressure, pestering, and then pitch slapping when it's on social media.
Mhm.
And the big thing that we try to do is deprogram that, where we teach that sales is not about convincing people to buy. It's about finding or creating alignment between the customer's problem and your solution. And the idea there is no pressure, no drama. But if your goal is looking for alignment, and every step in your sales process is designed to go, is there alignment or not? Should we take the next step? Okay, if there is alignment, let's go take the next step. If there's not, that's fine too. We part ways. But there's no pressure of trying to force somebody that is not a fit to try to be a fit and try to use all these high pressure tactics to get them to a close.
Yeah.
No, you want to fill your pipeline with potential opportunities and sift through them to go, where's the alignment? And that's where we focus our time and effort in cultivating that relationship.
Okay, so I'm a franchise consultant, and
Yeah.
I would never try to sell anybody a franchise.
Yeah.
I educate them on what the franchise is about, the culture of the franchise, all the things that go into a franchise, the hard work they got to put into if they're going to consider a franchise.
Yeah.
But if I try, you're not buying a car, and even going buying a car. I remember out of college, my second job, my first job was working for a franchise.
Yep.
At waiting tables at Applebee's. My BS degree in psychology did not prepare me well.
So you get it.
My first job out of college is waiting table.
Yep.
Second job was I probably should do something else. I sold cars.
I did
And
too.
And the car dealership was so shady and so high pressure after I saw what they were doing, and a good friend of mine came in on a Friday, and before he went to the finance office, I said, do not buy, I literally told my friend, do not buy the car today.
Yeah.
3.5 hours later, he came out smiling. I'm like, oh, geez.
Yeah.
Saturday morning, he was there with his dad, with the paperwork in his dad's.
Turn the thing back in.
Turn it back in. You get 3 days to turn it back in.
Yep.
He got it back in. People really are turned off by that. And I think today, especially because there's so much noise and so much attention and so much pressure, where what you're describing is welcome and it feels natural to the person.
I love the fact that you brought up the car sales. So that's another point of commonality. Mine wasn't necessarily cars. I was in commercial truck sales.
Okay.
And I only went to apply with one dealer and call it luck, providence, fortune, whatever you want to call it. But I happened on the top selling GMC truck dealer in the country. It's up in Kennesaw, Georgia, outside of Atlanta. And they had a fantastic sales culture. They were very systematic in their approach to sales. So to the point of the receptionist doesn't just answer the phone. She answers the phone, says, "It's a great day at Carl Black," sets the tone. If for the retail guys, when they're on the lot, you don't walk up to the customer and go, "How can I help you?" You walk up to the customer. Let's say it was me. I'd walk up and say, "Hi, welcome to Carl Black. My name is Sean. What brings you by the dealership today?" And that slight interruption in their pattern, in the customer's pattern and expectation, puts a little pause on them. It's like, oh, okay. And they'll go, "Well, I'm here to find a vehicle for my daughter," or something like that. And now you have a conversation. "Oh, that's great." And you get a little bit of preliminaries and go, "Come follow me and we'll explore what we have in inventory and see what we can find as the right fit for you and your daughter." Right? So they dialed in the systems. And so much of what I teach today, the seed of that is what I observed there. And they had an exceptional sales culture in the sense that if any of the other reps, if we observed that they were engaging in high pressure tactics or doing something that was just out of line with the customer, it wouldn't be management talking to that rep. It would be one of us as veterans going up to him and say, "Hey, that's not how we do it here." So that's the power of what culture can do. In the same industry, it creates a different experience for the customer and for the sales rep.
You had such a different experience. You spent how many years did you spend doing that?
I only spent 6 years doing that, from 2002 to 2008. But by my third full year in the business, I was ranked among the top 25 in the country in medium duty truck sales, and I had 0 sales experience prior to that. Wow. That's the power of the culture. I left the industry in 2008 when GM got out of the medium duty truck sales business.
Wow. And I think I was in that I did car sales for a total of 1 week because I was so principled when they literally tried to screw my friend. I said, "I'm not doing this anymore." But I sold 7 cars in a week.
That is fantastic.
Not knowing what the heck I was doing. And I'll share you one. Can I share one thing that I've always kind of shared? It was like the middle of the week, like a Wednesday, and it was pouring rain. Nothing was happening. Everybody's just sitting around. I literally pulled out a yellow page and started calling the hardware stores. And whoever answered the phone, I said, "Can you ask the people around you if anybody's interested in a pickup truck? Because we got a special." I had 3 people come in to the shop that day.
That is a fantastic idea.
It worked beautifully. It worked good. But so I had a natural instinct for it, I suppose.
You did.
But I was so turned off, I steered away from it. But you see so the culture, I really appreciate what you're saying, because imagine if I had stepped into that company, it probably been a very different direction. I probably would have been on a very different path today.
We had completely different trajectories, because if I stepped into yours, I would not be here today.
That's right.
I would be like you. If the longest I would last in that environment would be a week, because I'm not this outgoing, salesy guy. And to be put in a position where I feel like I'm cheating people, I couldn't live with that. So culture, I can't tell you how important culture is. And it's what drives me when I go in and work within companies, because I will not take on an engagement if the owner is not bought in with the right type of building a right type of culture that will set up the reps for success. Because of what you described there, if they're going to use high pressure stuff, it doesn't matter what I teach these reps. They're going to fail because the owner is failing them.
Yeah. And with what I do today, I ran trade associations for most of my career. So I learned relationship building and from that, and never having to use high pressure to do that. But I look at what I do today as a franchise consultant. When it gets to the franchisor it goes down to one word ultimately, and it's culture. Because the franchisor and that potential franchise they have to be in alignment with each other. They got to feel
There's that word.
They got to feel comfortable with each other for this to work.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't work, and they don't get awarded because they're not selling a franchise. They're awarding a franchise.
Yep.
Otherwise, they don't. It doesn't happen. That deal does not get closed. Does not happen.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about your 3 levers of growth for a business. I think this is really interesting, and this is going to open some eyes for especially small businesses who just got. Yeah, what I noticed working with small business owners over the years, they're really good at what they do.
Yep.
But sometimes they have so many fires, their heads to the ground, and they're just plowing forward, addressing whatever's in front of them.
Yeah.
This kind of forces them to step back and think, okay, let's be a little more strategic in our approach. Let's unpack those 3 levers.
Yeah, 100%. So typically when I'm first working with a client, that's what we focus on.
Okay.
Call them the 3 levers of growth. Is lever number 1 is your proposal conversion rate.
Mm-hmm.
In the trades, you'll call it estimates. In other places, they're called bids or quotes. Whatever the case is, the moment you submit that proposal or bid and the number of those bids that convert into sales, that's your proposal conversion rate, PCR. You think of that as your batting average. How efficient are you with the opportunities you currently have flowing in your pipeline? Lever number 2 is revenue per sale.
Mm-hmm.
Some people think of it as your average deal size or whatever the nomenclature. But the idea behind revenue per sale is if you're hitting singles or doubles right now, what can we do through effective upselling and cross-selling strategies to increase these deal sizes to make them more like doubles, triples, and home runs? So now lever 1, you're improving your efficiency. Lever 2, now you're getting you're getting more runs with each hit. Lever number 3 is proposal volume, and that's the number of at-bats. And so the question there is, what do we need to do from a business development standpoint to fill our pipeline with more opportunities? So existing companies, we start with that lever number 1 because they have opportunities flowing through the pipe. It doesn't make sense to keep pushing more into the pipe until we've closed stopped the leak, right? And so focusing on PCRs where we look at, okay, let's stop the leak here. So one client brought me in, they were having for the first 3 quarters of 2024, they had a 36, or their lead estimator had a 36% proposal conversion rate. And they brought me in going, what is the room for improvement that we have here? And so I sat down with them, interviewed the lead estimator, got an idea of their current process, some things they were doing well, but I noticed 2 areas where they could improve that could make a substantial difference. Maybe it could make a 5% difference and take it from 36 to 41, or maybe 10%. But that small difference is that small difference when you have 60 to 80 proposals a month is a huge revenue gain. So we looked at that and go, okay, here, we'll make these 2 adjustments, worked with coaching, and I started with them with 2 months left in Q4. And so for the first 3 quarters, averaged 36%. In Q4, he was at 50.1%.
Wow.
With December just over 60%. So that is the importance of looking at processes and systems, and making slight tweaks can make high leverage improvements.
Yeah, makes sense.
And so then we'd go and let's talk to their lead technicians on how can we capitalize on more upselling opportunities? How do we broach it with the customer without feeling like we're being salesy? Because we're technicians, we're not salespeople. So those are the things that I look at. And then we go to the lever number 3, and especially ones that are in newer companies, they need leads flowing through the pipe.
Yeah.
So
It's
sometimes
marketing.
we will focus
Attention.
there. So yeah, there's two components. There's marketing, especially in B2C businesses like home services and things like that. And then a slight business development component. In B2B, it's almost, let's say in B2C, it's going to be a 70-30, 70% it's going to be marketing driving that lead generation, 30 business development. And B2B, it's more like 90-10, with 90 being business development, 10% being marketing, because your ideal, the best accounts to go after, they're not looking for marketing to say, they are already being served by someone else, right? People are coming to them. So if you want to win their business, you need salespeople that are developing those relationships.
And that really goes to the education piece, because a lot of times those folks have long-term relationships with vendors.
Yes.
And to win that business, I mean, it might be a cousin deal, but if the deal is strong enough, and the new widget, whatever it is, brings a value that the other guy can't, then you got a shot at it. But that's education.
So can I give you an example?
Yeah,
Of a situation when I was selling trucks. I called on the fleet manager for the head of all the Caterpillar dealers in Georgia, and at the time they were buying almost exclusively from another dealer that they had done it for years, had that relationship comfortability. I just eased my way in over time. I made the introduction. So, hey, would you ever be open to meeting for lunch? I know you're happy with your current vendor. That's awesome. Just would love to establish a relationship with you in case, you need something that they don't have. And so I met with them at lunch, and then periodically would just check in with them. And I would just position us as, hey, continue that relationship. But if you have a 911 call, they can't source what you need, I'm happy to see if we can do it. And we can be a fallback option. Well, 18 months later, I get a call. Hey,
They remember you.
our dealer can't. Well, they remember me because we'd been in touch. Like, I would have a systematic cadence of how often I would stay in touch with him. And so he called me up, said, hey, our dealer can't get this. Something you can help us with. I was able to help him. Next thing you know, that was the crack in the door. And then I started getting more and more opportunities. Never took the entire business, but I didn't need to. I was like, man, I'll take the crumbs of this.
Yeah.
Because it's a huge account. That's where you talk about that relationship.
All right, let's unpack the three pieces again. The efficiency. Can you give me an example of the efficiency piece so people can understand that?
Yeah, when you say the efficiency, you're talking about the proposal conversion rate.
The step one, yeah.
Yeah, step one, the proposal conversion rate. So you look at, okay, what is our baseline rate right now? Is it, say, 30, 35%?
Right.
Can we take it to 50% or 55%? That's what you're looking at. And there are a couple mistakes there, if you want me to share this with you, that
please.
If people correct, they can improve their proposal conversion rate.
Okay.
One is they'll do a proper discovery and go, okay, would you like a quote? And they say yes. And then they supply the quote, and then they either get ghosted afterwards or, hey, yeah, we got your quote. Thank you. But your competitor was, $1,000 less. So you lose the business. So the one adjustment that you do there is during discovery, you go, a project like this is typically anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000. Does that fit in line with what you were expecting to invest in a project like this? And if they go, yeah, that's about in line. Okay, then you continue the conversation, or they go, whoa, your competitor came in at $9,000. Oh, okay. So now you have some insight where they're coming from. And you go, $9,000. Wow. we're not usually the lowest price,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not $2,000 higher or $3,000 higher.
Mm-hmm.
Usually when I see that happen, it's because there's a discrepancy in the scope.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be open to sharing with me the scope? You
That's
can
great.
lock out the numbers, but would you be open to sharing with me the scope to ensure that we're comparing apples to apples?
That's great.
Because if they can deliver on the same scope but $3,000 less, that's probably a deal you need to take.
Mhm.
But if there's discrepancy in scope, we can save you some of that heartache. And now you have a proper comparison. So by presenting that question during discovery, you're able to have those conversations that if you just wait till after you send the proposal, you'll never have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
That's one. The second adjustment you make, because this is another mistake, is you just send the proposal without and treating it like it's final without having another conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So typically what I see when people are successful, we do this in my business. This is what I teach my clients. When you have control over who the decision maker is, sometimes you're working with third parties and you just got to submit the proposal. These are the deals you can have control over. And what you do is you finish up the discovery. Okay, this is great. I've got what I need to put this scope together and give you a hard number. This will take me till probably tomorrow, early afternoon. Do you have your calendar available? Let's go ahead and schedule a time and let's do a scope review of the draft to ensure that we have everything correct that you're looking for.
That's great.
So you're essentially presenting the proposal with the number. And during that call, that's where you have the opportunity to say, how would you like to proceed from here? And the idea behind that is when you have control over the process, you want the proposal to simply be a recap and a formalization of what you have already agreed upon in a live conversation.
Wow.
You do those two things, you significantly increase your proposal conversion rate.
So that's the efficiency, the proposal conversion rate.
Yep.
Upselling makes sense. You're trying to find other way where you can bring other value to them and charge a premium for those, or just charge more for, additional service.
Yeah,
Right.
and real quick, can
Yep,
I
please.
provide you an example of that?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so on that, it's doing it in a way where it doesn't feel like whoever's on site that may not be the sales rep
Mm-hmm.
feels like they're being salesy. So it's a matter of, if it's in home services and technician is arriving, it's simply a matter of, while I'm here, is there anything else you'd like me to take a look at? And
That's
you
great.
do that before you start the job in case it changes the scope of the job. And then, so that it's those opportunities, or it may be, while I'm here, this could be after the job. So you ask it and say, you mentioned earlier you didn't have anything you want us to look at. Just before I leave, to confirm, you don't want us to look at anything else, do you? And every once in a while they go, actually, you know what? Can you take a look at this? You take a look at it, you take your pictures, and then you go back and now you start it's a whole new job opportunity from there.
Yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. So your approach is so disarming of how you walk people through this. I love that.
Thank you.
It makes all the sense in the world to me. And of course, the last piece is volume, which means the owner's got to get out there, or his sales team's got to get out there and get more done.
Four components to that. Do we have time real quick?
Yeah, let's keep going, because this is helpful for anybody listening to this show. And I have a lot of people who are in home services who listen to the show. So
Yeah.
I want them to hear the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way I think, we've got systematic selling, but we have a concept called systematic prospecting, and there are 4 components to that: systematic networking, systematic social selling. That's the idea of using LinkedIn to to network. And it's not just about posting, it's networking and building relationships, similar to how you and I have done and,
Yep.
you know, throughout. And then systematic outreach.
Mm-hmm.
And that's outreach that's either done, say, like you calling all the hardware stores and saying, hey, anybody there in line looking for a truck? You know, it's cold calls, it's cold emails, but it's not mass. No, it's more of a one-to-one. Here's a target prospect. Let me, you know, let me reach out. It can be a DM or it can be a site visit. You know, you see, you know, when I was selling trucks, I would see fleet trucks around and going through industrial parks, and I would just stop by and say, hey, you know, hey, anytime you guys are looking for a truck, I'd be happy to provide you a competitive bid. So systematic outreach. And then the fourth component is systematic referrals. That's where you define within your sales process the best opportunity to ask for referrals. And a lot of times that's, you know, it's either towards the close of a job or maybe right after the job, or you've just cultivated relationships with people. And one question that a friend of mine shared with me not too long ago, as I was thinking about putting this together, I had my own processes and everything, but this question was just a huge unlock. He said, yeah, I was sitting at a country club with one of my customers. I just asked him, he was like, hey, who do I not know that you think I should get to know?
Yeah.
And that framing it from the negative perspective, you talk about disarming. That is a disarming way of asking for it. And it's just been a gold question for me. But that's how you get more leads into the pipeline in addition to your marketing efforts.
Well, considering I was at a B&I meeting this morning, that's a great question. People I not know I should.
Yeah.
I love that. So yeah, those four steps, the networking. I mean, like I just said, I was at a networking meeting this morning. The social, the outreach, and the referrals. Is there one area you see that people struggle with more than others?
They it's all four. So in your own business, I think of the four as a diversified portfolio. It's rarely 25, 25, 25, 25%, right?
Yeah.
It's rarely equal. In my business, it skews heavily on the networking and the social selling.
Yeah.
And it's largely because I'm in what's called a discretionary business versus an incumbent business. A lot of the clients I work with, they aren't already buying like sales training and coaching. So my way to get in is to be talking about that problem that my ICP is dealing with and have that draw into me. But I got to be very systematic about doing it. Incumbent businesses are ones that people are already buying that service. Direct outreach and those types of things work really well. My business also referrals helps. But where I see people drop the ball, let's take networking, for example. They network, but their post game of the networking falls apart. And to me, that is where the money is.
Yeah.
When you get your five new contacts from there, they're getting a follow-up email from me. Hey, great to meet you email that same day or first thing the next morning. They are being connected on LinkedIn. And then I'm cultivating that relationship. If it's something that, hey, we had a connection there, or maybe they fit my ICP, I'm scheduling a one-to-one.
Gotcha.
And it's an informal meeting. And the reason why one-to-ones are important for my business and the folks that I work with is there's a direct correlation to your number of one-to-ones to your number of qualified prospect opportunities.
Yeah.
So that is the tip of the spear. You will know how much sales that you will get when you see where your one-to-ones are up or down.
That is so true. And you know, when I came into this world 2 years ago doing the the franchising piece. So I stepped away from trade associations 3 years ago. I became a consultant to trade associations, 5 of them along the East Coast. And then I went as a consultant into franchise. So that's a whole new skill, learning how to network.
100%.
And because with a trade association, people come to you. You're the magnet. Not the person, but the organization's the magnet. And in the world of sales, you are going out hunting and so forth. I'll share something that we did. I was very fortunate when I got into this world because I was one of 8 people that 3 people started a networking group, and I was one of the invitees. So there were 8 of them.
Awesome. Yeah.
And we were hyper intentional about meeting each other one-on-one in between the monthly meetings.
Good.
That group in the past year and a half has grown to over 95 people now.
Wow.
Now we meet, typically
Well
we have
done.
we have about 30, 35 people, but those are real relationships. And
Yes.
everybody's really hustling or working and trying to constantly think who can be a great referral source. I mean, great referral. Man, we could probably go on and on because you started opening my mind. The social piece too is really important for people.
It is.
The social piece, I came from the world of promoting Louisiana seafood for 13 years, and we got a ton of press. So locally, that's what all my friends knew me as.
Yeah.
It took me 2 years to unpack that branding.
Yeah.
To do what I do now, and social is how that happened. I had my 40th reunion last weekend. And
Wow.
one guy came up to me and said, "Man, you're on LinkedIn all the time." It took time, and but it's that consistency, having the
It
system
really is.
every day, doing something there.
Yes.
And then the outreach, I get that too. I mean, all these things fit in the world that I'm in. You have to do the outreach, and of course the referrals that's where the gold is, because those leads are always excellent, usually excellent leads. The Pearson's
Awesome.
happy. Man, Sean, this has been a wealth of information. Some people may have to go back and listen to a few of these things a second time to write it all down, to capture it all. Because if they just follow your process. Now, somebody wants to, well, before I ask you how people get in touch with you,
Yeah.
I do want to ask you a question. If you were not doing this for a living,
Yeah.
what would Sean Lyden be doing? What would be the ideal role for you? What would you be doing? Would you be a rock
be in the-
star? Or what would you be?
You'd think with me being a musician and everything, but in actuality, I'd be an intelligence agent. I'd be a spy,
Oh, wow.
hands down. If I had not been married early and met my wife early and had a family, that would be me. I think it suits me because I'm an introvert, very analytical, and being an introvert, my way of succeeding in sales is to use that as a superpower instead of seeing it as a disadvantage. And I can read. I have a skill in reading people, and I can read people by looking at them.
Mm-hmm.
I can read people when I'm in coaching sessions and a client is telling me a situation. They've said 3 words and my head is down on my microphone going, I know where this thing ends. And I just go, can you continue the story? And they will continue it because that aspect of human nature. I don't know if it's because I was a English lit major with a philosophy minor or what it was that ingrained that in me, but being able to read people and to predict things of how people will respond is something that I think I would probably apply professionally in that arena.
Oh, there's no doubt. That's what you do naturally. It's an instinct to you. I had a classmate at that reunion who was a former retired FBI guy, and I was trying to pick his brain. He's only telling me so much. I want to know more.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so you help coach people with their small businesses and businesses.
Yeah.
How do people find you? I know they can connect with you on LinkedIn. That's how you and I connect. How can people find you? What's the best way? And I'll have your links and so forth.
No, I appreciate it. Besides LinkedIn, the best way to find me and to, get a taste of the things that I do and teach is my newsletter and podcast that you can find at systematicselling.co. So without the M, it's systematicselling.co.
Well, Sean, this has been an honor to have you on. I've learned a lot myself listening to you. I'm sure, I hope our audience got some value as well. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Honored to be here. Thank you so much, Ewell. Appreciate you.
All right. You too. Thank you. That is a wrap with Sean. Now, I want to thank you for being here. And to do that, I want to provide a little extra value because you did stick around. And you're going to be the one of the lucky ones that gets the added value for being here at the end of the show. There's another networking group, myself and another gentleman, Josh, started early this year in New Orleans in January with the intention on finding out what other networking groups there are in the city. And this is the formula that we use, and it works. We invited a couple of folks. So the first meeting, we had like 5 of us sitting around the table. What we did is we went from person to person and asked each person, what networking event are you going to this week and next week? And we write that down. And then we just go all the way around the room. And then we say, okay, who wants to go to this group? Who wants to go to this group? And who wants to go to this group? So what in essence, what we learned is there's all these other network groups going on around the city that we did not know about because each person brings a whole nother audience and a perspective that we hadn't even thought about. So we're tapping into a much larger footprint of networking groups across the city of New Orleans. And we've intentionally kept this group tight. We're not trying to get to 40 or 50 people at a meeting. These meetings are a sweet spot, seem to be between 5 and 10 people because there's so much information and there's so many other groups that we weren't even aware of. It takes time to go through all the different groups and what are the hot events going on in the city. So we're able to plug in and we're informed on a regular basis. Plus, we're also nurturing those relationships between each other for that particular networking group, building relationships and helping drive business for each other, which is what this is about. That's what networking is about, is to find business and make a deal, close a deal. Hope that a little extra is helpful to you. And if you're trying to figure out another way to drive leads in your community, you could be the one who leads that. How do you get it started? It's simple. Find a friend and invite one person yourself, and that person invites 1 or 2 people, and you got yourself your initial group. It's that simple. And it works. That's the beauty of it. It truly works. So I want to thank you for being here. Providing extra value. I'm going to ask you a favor, is please like and subscribe to this. Hit 5 stars on Apple if you're listening to the podcast there. And thank you for being part of our community. We just provide the value and we want to continue to do. And those simple things really do help a lot. So thank you. Now, you know the drill. Be intentional and make today a great day. Bye-bye.